in the 70s, if you were looking at 18-year-olds who were eligible for the military, about 30% of them couldn't join the military because they were unhealthy, right? That number today is 77%. 77% of 18-year-olds in America cannot join the military today because of their health. If we look at the healthcare system and we really point it on like women, children, you get a better shot in life and you get a better shot with your health.
Kate Ryder is the founder of Maven, the largest virtual clinic in women's and family's health. Maven serves over 28 million members and over 2,000 clients, which offer support for the whole life cycle of parenting and being a woman, including fertility, maternity, pediatrics, and menopause.
The best founders I know are humble. Like, you will make mistakes, people will disagree with you and say, no, that doesn't make any sense. And so there's just a humility, I think, that comes with all of that. Healthcare is changing so fast, consumer health is changing so fast. Like, I'm 11 years in and the world's insane, but I'm not tired. I'm so energized because of all of the need in our category and opportunity for change in women's and family health. As a founder, you just need to be so resilient and so engaged, and you can time it right and you have a little luck and success will come.
Kate, it's great to have you. Thank you so much for joining the Winners Welcome podcast.
Thanks. It's great to be here.
Yeah, let's jump right in.
All right.
All right. So I would love to get into what are 2 or 3 pivotal moments for you that kind of made you who you are?
Going right to the personal.
Yeah. I like to start there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I would say one thing. I have a great family. And in childhood, though, I was allergic to the lake I grew up on.
Wow.
And so whereas my family would go in the water and go tubing and water skiing, I would sit on the side and read books. And so I think that experience made me a very imaginative person, a reflective person, and pretty independent and resilient early on. So I always, definitely, I think that has shaped who I am. I think another big moment early on was I lived in Europe for many years, being a writer and a journalist. And I was in Spain, I was in France, I was in London, I was also in Singapore in Asia. And that was just amazing to be able to interview all these really interesting people and chase all these stories all around the world. So that's certainly one of them as well.
Okay, great. And I know you have entrepreneurs in your family, but do you think entrepreneurs are born or are they made?
Ooh, it's a good question. The nature versus nurture argument. I would say it's probably a combination. Definitely made. Like, there's amazing stories. I love the kind of rags to riches stories of entrepreneurs who kind of rise up out of nowhere. But I do think there is a genetic component of like the ability to handle stress, the ability, like I handle stress pretty well. A lot of my friends or family will say like, oh my gosh, like, how are you sleeping at night half the time? And so I think that's something that might be, genetic. I think the ability, just thinking, a lot of entrepreneurs have a vision for how the world should be, if the world doesn't exist in that way. And so that also comes pretty easily to me. I don't know if it was all those books I read by the lake or just generally, my dad was an entrepreneur. Both my grandfathers and my grandmother were entrepreneurs.
All right, it's in your blood then.
So there could be a genetic component.
What about like risk taking? Like, how much do you think?
That's another thing. Yeah, my
All right.
God. Like, my risk profile is very, very high. It makes me so nervous today to be a parent, to now have 3 kids.
Oh, no.
Your risk profile is so high.
Has it shown up in other ways, like your risk-seeking nature, or at least risk-tolerant nature?
Oh, I mean,
being traveling across the world, right?
When I graduated college, I just moved to Madrid without knowing anyone, and I was determined to learn Spanish. And so I just moved in with a group of Spanish speakers I met on the internet.
Wow.
And
hopefully not like Craigslist.
It was like the Spanish version
Okay.
of Craigslist. I think there were less creeps in Europe at the time.
Fair enough.
Madrid's a lovely place. And so, yeah, that's pretty risk-taking to just, it was this was 2004. So, it's not like we were hyper connected all the time. Like, we of course had our phones and our computers, but it was not like the world today. But that was risky. I've done other like really stupid things that hopefully my children will never do on taking risk. But yes, a lot of and obviously entrepreneurship is a huge risk.
Great. So going into entrepreneurship a little bit more, I mean, So Harlem Capital, we're focused on exceptional people. I think our biggest lesson over the last 7 years is the team matters more than anything. And I almost want to say like your outcome's kind of baked when you back the team and you don't know how it's going to work out, but like the person in the seat is just way more important than anything else. Um, I'm curious, like what traits and founders do you think are essential to kind of creating a generational company?
Sure. I think well, there's always an element of timing and luck in every category, right? And I think so if you hit the timing and luck well, I think the best founders I know are humble because particularly when you're creating a category or you're building a new business that's not just kind of like a copycat of something else, but you really are building a new business with vision. That's hard. People will like you will make mistakes. People will disagree with you and say, no, that doesn't make any sense. And so there's just a humility, I think, that comes with all of that. It's a resilience, of course, but also deep humility because when you do make the mistakes, you have to kind of pivot quickly. Um, Curiosity, the ability, I think, to go deep and be high all at once. You have to really know, like, how your business is running, how your market is running to then make the strategic calls. So I think, yeah, that's another trait I look for. And then I think the ability to just attract great people to work at the company. Entrepreneurs are not the ones, unlike journalism, where like you're the one writing this story. Like we're all just a team. Entrepreneurs are the leader of a team, but like it's a team that really does everything.
Great. I do think the best people will kind of figure it out. I read a piece speaking about careers, but also startups, and the fact that sometimes is the most important is timing, but also is the one you have the least control over.
Hmm.
I guess what do you think made Maven's timing so special?
So in the early days, you could argue we didn't have the right timing.
Okay.
We were early, like we were really early, and so if we had started a few years later, maybe we would have burned less capital. But it also, I think, on the flip side, now that we're a decade in, COVID really transformed digital health, telehealth, user behavior. It transformed our business. That was really when our growth flywheel took off. And we already had many years at that point under our belt to kind of really understand care delivery, really understand digital health. So you could also argue that it was beneficial. But the first few years were hard and it was just all about survival.
Okay, great. I want to ask you one more kind of team personal question. What's your superpower?
My superpower?
Yeah, and I ask all founders that these days because I kind of want to hear their answer.
Sure. I think maybe my superpower is storytelling. I think maybe less obvious, but is I report out the story. So I seek information from a lot of different places. It's what we used to do as journalists. So I have tons. If we're trying to solve a hard problem, the way I'll try to figure it out is I'll also just call 10 people who are really, really knowledgeable about the problem we're trying to solve. And that will inform my point of view. And I particularly love it when people kind of disagree with each other or give me two conflicting answers, because that kind of really then dials into, okay, this is truly like, this is the choice we have to make, like A or B. But I think that powers my storytelling. So yes, I'm a good storyteller, but I'm constantly information broking, like a journalist would, to figure out what the story is and take what the direction of the business is.
Fantastic. I know in the early Maven days, you definitely relied on some of the skills you built as a journalist, as a VC. But today you're serving 28 million patients, right? A bunch of customers, raise $100 million, right? I'm curious, like, who or what do you turn to now to keep up leveling? I think you have to scale faster than the company. So what are some of those resources you're turning to?
Yeah, I mean, that's exact. I have so many. I have, former coaches. I have current coaches. I have board members who are mentors themselves. Like I have this one board member. She's based in New York, Rachel Winiger, who's been with us now for almost 10 years. But she's a decade older than I am. So it's amazing to learn from someone who has that experience, who's just ahead of you. Someone gave me that advice early on, which I think is great advice, that if you're seeking out mentors, like if they're 30 years older than you, that you're too far apart in life experience. If they're 1 year older than you, you're too close. But that kind of, if they're about 7 to 15 years, like that's a really sweet spot. So feel very fortunate to count so many board members, advisors as coaches. And I will say, like, I pull in people all the time. So like Laszlo Bach is an example. He was Google's chief people officer for many years in like the hyperscaling years. And so there was a moment, it was right around when COVID hit, that like everything was changing so quickly. And I was like, can you just work with me for a few years? Can you just like work with my team? So also like not afraid to ask for help, and we'll kind of lean into what we need at the time, but then do have these kind of consistent advisors.
Great. And I guess I'm curious, right? So you've seen the company scale so much. I want to hear a little bit more about how your role has changed in the early days with a small team versus over 650 employees. Like, what is your day-to-day like? How is it different? How is it the same?
Well, so someone told me once that they assumed by this point I would be like drinking a margarita on a beach. Like you done it, you have all this team around you, like they couldn't be farther from the truth. I think that each phase is so different, and I really am I love this phase, and I have enjoyed each phase. And they play to different strengths. And to your question around how are you leveling up, like, the areas in which I'm leveling up are different each phase. So the early phase is survival, and it was just keeping the team motivated, keeping the team focused on vision, because we did not, like, it was like very small numbers in the early days. And it was good cash management, and it was being relentless about focus and what we needed to do to get the business going. So that was kind of the early days. The middle phase of scaling, so I kind of, you look at it from the 0 to 50 million jump, the 50 to 200 million jump, and then we're in the 2 to 500 million jump, which is
big numbers.
Which is
I met a CEO who said he was in the same bucket, and he's like, "Oh, we're still small," and I'm like, "That's the kind of founder we need."
Exactly, totally. I know, like someone said this is a really hard phase, but then someone else was like, no, the 500 to a billion phase is way harder.
Just wait until you get there.
Yeah, but then I think so once you get through that first bit and you have product market fit, then the growth wheel starts to spin. And you are optimizing for growth rate above all else. I mean, now in this day and age, like capital is more constrained. And I think if we were in that early phase of scaling, maybe, and then there's AI now, right? Like it would have looked a little different. But for us, like it was just spend the money, hire the people, and ride the growth. And that phase was about hiring the best people, getting out in the market, telling the story, talking to the clients, building the best products. I think the thing that has been a throughput of all of it is just like always relentlessly coming back to patient impact. I still, even when I'm trying to figure out business strategy, I'm not just talking to clients, like I'm also talking to patients, because so much of business strategy is also product strategy. And in women's health, like no patient journey is the same often. So it's always really important to do. So that's a throughput. And then right now, it's more strategic, and it's more, you really have to put a level of operational discipline on the company in order to successfully scale into the next phase, particularly into the public markets. So that's, you hire bigger teams that are operators and, deep into the data, the dashboards. Do we have the right data? Are we, really kind of going deep? You need to hire great managers because your teams are bigger. So then it's really about making sure that, like, there is something to be said about, like, one of my board members at one point said, it would be so nice that you have out-hired yourself. Like your whole team is just doing everything and you have to do nothing anymore. That means you've really succeeded. But I actually think because the world is is changing so fast right now with AI tools, healthcare is changing so fast, consumer health is changing so fast, like geopolitics are in your face every day and transforming the world right now. I would say that actually plays to my strength, which is synthesizing information quickly, seeing around corners, being adaptable, being fast. And so yeah, everything's kind of crazy right now, I think, for a lot of different CEOs and companies. And I would say it plays to a lot of founder strengths. So I wish I could say now at this point, we've built the machine and the machine is scaling, but the machine is scaling, but the world is changing so fast. And so how do you make sure that the machine is adapting?
Great. I wasn't going to bring it up, but you mentioned AI, so I'll
Yeah.
go there. I'm curious how you're using AI for yourself and how Maven is using AI. And I know it could be tricky because you are in healthcare. So how
Yeah.
are you thinking about, speed, optimization versus, data security and HIPAA compliance and all those things?
Yeah. I think about AI in like three buckets. One is AI for the enterprise. So how do we just like do our work faster? One is AI against our backend operations. And so that's not just like internal tooling, but it's literally like a payment processing, right? And entire workflows that are product workflows that we're able to automate more. It could be, you know, AI scribes for our providers as they're transcribing notes from patients. So like, that's another bucket where it's not patient. It doesn't touch patients, but it is in the product. And then the third bucket is patient facing AI. So we do all three. I think it's been a gradually, patient facing AI was harder, obviously 2 years ago because the models weren't as good. But now that the models are getting a lot better and AI is becoming part of like your standard behavior and how you interact with healthcare, the information, the internet. But yeah, I would say for the enterprise, I think this year is going to be a huge step change in truly transforming work. Like we've started to see some of it last year, but I don't think it was really happening at a level of scale that it's about to start happening. So, like even what Claude launched a month ago is so much better than what it was. Like, so there's just more memory in a lot of these AI models now to just be more relevant and do more. I also just even think basics like visualizing data, making decks, like that is now all possible in ways that it wasn't previously. Like structuring data, making sense of it, data entry, like it's just all happening. So I think this year's gonna be fascinating from an enterprise standpoint. Product standpoint, same thing. Like AI is transforming engineering teams and output. And so you can just ship more. And if you can ship more, the easiest place to start and there's a laundry list, I think, for every company, particularly in healthcare on the back end of like, oh, great, we can just ship more of these automations that will make things easier or ship more of these tools on our care delivery side that will make things more efficient for our providers. So we can move faster there. And then on the patient facing side, I think we're also now in an era where it truly AI will move from kind of being that helpful tool to truly kind of making larger scale diagnoses. And that's kind of happening in the next few months, like where it can look across all of these disparate data sets and disparate data formats and start to proactively find things and proactively flag things. Like that's really cool. Whereas now, you upload a lab and you're like, can you read this for me? Like, can you make sense of this for me? Or, hey, this was the diagnosis I just got. Can you tell me what it means? Or, I'm having this weird side effect. So it's interpreting a lot, which is so helpful. And it's making things a bit more transparent. I hear about stories all the time of like using AI for price transparency in healthcare, which is interesting. But I think we're again, just in the next few years, excited for the step change moments that we're gonna see.
Okay. Oh, so many great tidbits there. I want to get to value-based care a little bit later.
Yeah.
But I guess for now, I mean, AI is obviously transformational, driving a lot of productivity. On the other side, though, it is affecting the job market. It is replacing, or at least is anticipated to replace a lot of people. Plus, at least in some industries, they overhired during the boom times. So because you serve clients or corporations, I'm curious if you had to make any adjustments to your positioning, mainly because there's been layoffs, but there's also been, I guess, just a less employee-friendly environment. So are you seeing like any impact to you? And if so, how have you had to adjust?
So I think on the layoffs recently, there's also like a great unwinding from COVID that's happening. When you look at,
Definitely.
the labor market during COVID and all of the hiring. So there's some of that. And I think, there's been AI layoffs at the margin, but I don't think at scale. So the way that we're going to see it, coming up. But yeah, I mean, listen, I think the economy is in a correction moment right now. I think what I'm hearing from a lot of our clients is that a lot of them are in hiring freezes. So we're seeing it, in the Gen Z job market as an example. It's hard to get a job these days because everyone's waiting to see, do I really need this job? What's AI going to do? I mean, everyone I talk to, like, no one wants to do layoffs with this incoming wave of AI. So you would rather just grow into it, but that does mean much more constrained hiring in the near term. So we certainly see that from our clients, and we hear that from our clients. And I think, with there's going to be disruption and dislocation, and I think it's going to be a tough few years. But as we come out on the other side of it, new jobs will hopefully be created, and there it will be tough. Like if you are a law student right now and like a law school grad with a lot of student debt, like God, I feel for you. That is
Yeah.
not a great moment to be in with how AI is transforming industries. But for people trying to figure out in college today what they want to be, and what they want to do, I think, they're all very wide-eyed and open-eyed about it. And so I think things will hopefully start to level out. But there's no doubt about it. I mean, we are in a massive time of disruption and dislocation.
Well, it's a good time to be in healthcare because it's 20% of GDP.
Yeah, and it's
Demand isn't
healthcare
going
workers.
down.
I mean, I don't know the latest jobs report. It's like all healthcare workers that are being hired because you cannot replace like a nurse who is, really helping with physical hospital environments. And AI can do, and also healthcare is so slow, and there's so much regulation, and there's so much conservatism, but there's just so much need still. I mean, access is getting more constrained, not more open right now, which is why there's this boom in consumer health.
Great. I want to talk a little bit about the market dynamics. I mean, it seems like value-based care is benefiting Maven, is kind of coalesced with your growth. The whole idea, I guess, of shifting from value-based care from fee-for-service is that it'll improve incentives in the market. Do you think it's working as
No, it's
intended?
definitely not working. Everyone in healthcare will say that.
Okay.
But I think the big question people are asking, is it dead? And I do not think the dream of value-based care is dead. Quite frankly, like, it's how a functional system has to work. Like, you have to have the right incentives. And maternity is a perfect example where, imagine a world where everyone, like a doctor just got one fee, and that one fee was like, okay, great, here's all your doctor visits, I'm going to manage it well, versus there's all these little fees cut up. And so then all of a sudden a doctor gets paid more for a C-section. A hospital makes more money when it sends a baby into the NICU. Like, no. Like, if we lived in a world where it was all one fee, no matter what happened, the incentives would be so much better. So that's what value-based care is in a nutshell for people who don't really know what it is. And I think one of the biggest things that's held it back is there hasn't been like the right payment rails for it. There hasn't been the right risk models. There hasn't been the right data sets. It's hard to attribute, certain things in risk models. Like, was it really your solution that did it? How much do you get credit for? Given that there's so like healthcare is so complex. But no, I mean, it's where the system has to move. So I think right now, as AI is transforming all these different parts of healthcare, one of the things that's been great over the last few years and will, I think, continue to happen is data interoperability. So data is just easier to get now. And when you have data that's easier to get, it's really easy it becomes easier to attribute cause and effect and really build that outcomes model so that, companies like ourselves can really push into full risk because we have total confidence in all of the different data points that lead up to an outcome. So that's but then you have to find the willing person to do it. Even in Medicaid, as an example, I don't know if this is getting too wonky, but we were so surprised a few years ago when we went into the market and we were like, great, so, let's like do a bundle and take risk. And they're like, no. Like, I would actually just rather to get paid on like whether some HEDIS measures, whether someone goes to the doctor or not, whether you're helping them go to the doctor or not. We're like, okay, but like, don't we want to move to the outcome? Like, don't we want to get paid on the outcome? And there was just not appetite for it.
Wow. Well, you laid out a lot of good things. I mean, we're going to build our value-based care rails thesis. And if you know any great founders in that space, we'll definitely want to talk to them. You've been in healthcare for a while now. If you could wave a magic wand and change 3 things to fix the healthcare system, what would they be?
So first and foremost, payment reform,
Okay.
right? Like it's the value-based care that you're talking about. Like you have to align incentives in the right way, or else people are going to do what they're incentivized to do in a complex system. And if the system rewards more surgeries, if the system rewards more expensive care because you make more money doing it, that's what the system is going to push you towards. So that's why we are where we are today. So you have to have payment model reform where you align the right incentives to how people get paid to the outcomes. That's number one. I think number two is transparency. So that's it. Any consumer or any business like deserves to know how much things cost. We see that from our patients all the time, even in the fertility journey. The like it's so stressful if you're in an infertility journey already and you just don't know how much things will cost. And it actually impacts how you're receiving care and can lead to worse outcomes. So like transparency on how much things cost, transparency on like quality of doctor, just like metrics that so people can, just like a consumer product, you pick based on, like what you read about it. So that'd be number two. And then of course, like I think if women and families were at the center of a healthcare model, everything would work so much better. And I'll tell you a story on that point, and this just kind of illustrates it. So I was fly fishing, a few years ago with a guide who's a special education teacher in upstate New York. And he was talking about just, some of the acute needs and some of the students that he works with in rural New York in the town he lived in. He was saying, it's really tough because of fetal alcohol syndrome. And all of these kids come out into these families that are living in poverty, and a lot of them come out with issues already. And those kids then become the ones that, they don't have as much of an opportunity in life because they didn't start off life healthy, and they didn't start life off like, not just healthy when they were born and their mothers didn't get the right care, but then 0 to 5, when so much of development happens in your brain and your body, they didn't get the right nutrition support. They didn't get it. And so I think if we focus the healthcare system on prevention and we really put women and families at the center, and particularly like help moms have healthy pregnancies and healthy babies, and then that like 0 to 5 point of life, we would have better health outcomes like across the board, like diabetes, obesity, all of that would be better. I just heard this horrifying stat that so in the 70s, if you were looking at 18-year-olds who were eligible for the military, about 30% of them couldn't join the military because they would be unhealthy. They were unhealthy, right? That number today is 77%. 77% of 18-year-olds in America cannot join the military today because of their health. If we look at the healthcare system and we really point it on like women, children, like you get a better shot in life, and you get a better shot with your health.
Wow, you make it sound so simple. I mean, it's so interesting, right? Because I guess I heard on another interview you spoke on about like Medicaid, for example, and how some of those folks just already, because of the poverty aspect, they may be at a disadvantage. I'm thinking about like correlations with like obesity or people having kids later in life, which is tied to the economy. And like, there's so many different things that kind of work together. And then we're all on our phones all the time, which is making us all more sedentary and less healthy. So we'll see. Hopefully, like,
Yeah.
something changes. I have seen some like more people trying to go phone free and drink less and all that. So hopefully some of those things.
Yeah, but they also still need to have fun in life.
That's
so.
true. That's true. That's true. That's true.
Who was it? Someone.
They need to actually meet people.
Yeah, like
too.
want like alcohol and like,
Yeah.
it's like if it actually helps you like make friends more, like I want you to drink it.
Yeah.
Like, doctors
I'm
say that.
in the same camp actually, but we'll see across the
Yeah.
macro. This is awesome. Okay. So I think I want to kind of close talking about just some tips for founders and some of your personal outlook. I'll start with your definitions of success, right? I think I listened to a 2017 interview where you said it was to wake up with minimal regrets. In 2026, what is your definition of success?
Yeah, I think my definition is to give it your all every day. And lead by example, be a good parent, be a good wife, be a good CEO. And you're never going to do it all really well every day, but just always give it your all. And maybe it's the same side of the coin as no regrets, but less about no regrets, but more about just like, I always like to remind myself, like, right this minute, like right this second, it's the youngest we will ever be.
Wow. Okay. Gotta go do something.
Yeah.
And then I would love, I mean, you spend a lot of time, I think, mentoring founders. I think you've been amazing. You've spoke with our portfolio companies. Thank you so much for that. I'm curious if you had one tip for a founder who was young and wanted to be as successful as you, what would that one tip be?
It would just be to do what you love and do what you care about. I think, like I'm 11 years in and the world's insane, but I'm not tired. I'm so energized, because of all of the need in our category and the opportunity for change in women's and family health. And it just, as a founder, you just need to be so resilient and so engaged. And so just do what you love. And hopefully you can time it right and you have a little luck and success will come.
Great. And I think my last question will be, what do you want Maven's legacy to be in the world, in the healthcare market, however you want to define it?
I mean, I think it's to really just raise the standard of care for women and families, set the standard of care in some areas of it where there is no standard of care, but just to raise it. And then, kind of what I talked about, center women and families as some of the most important constituents in our healthcare system who just deserve better care.
That's a great note to end on. Kate, this was wonderful. I learned so much. I really appreciate you coming into the
Yeah,
podcast.
thanks for having me.